God bless everybody. Today is March 20th of 2023. This video is looking at a possible trend in Bitcoin and in the markets in general, and where this could be all going as we start to see this run into all kinds of problems with the banking systems, and liquidity in the system is not there, and the banks are starting to have all kinds of bank runs and different things like that. We sort of need to see where the charts are headed. So I'm going to make this real quick. I'm just seeing a trend here. I just wanted to, and it may or may not happen. But the charts are looking like it's heading this way, and so I just wanted to show you what I was seeing. So I basically, this is a fairly simple chart. I've drawn two trend lines, a top trend line and a bottom trend line. And as you can see, they fall along except for these deviations where the charts hit resistance and support. So the top line is resistance, the bottom line is support. Now, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just an analyst. I just look at charts. I look at charts in all kinds of different areas of economy and other different things. And so when I look at these charts, I see certain trends. And some people may disagree with me, and that's fine. It is what it is. I called Doge going to 8 cents almost a year and a half ago. I showed a video of that just in the last video where and how that happened and how these charts work. So this is what I'm seeing, and this is what I've been talking about, how these markets are going to fall out. We're moving into maybe the potential third leg, and this is a problem for anyone that's invested in the markets, 401, or invested in any kind of markets, treasury, bonds, different things like that. Anyway, so what I'm seeing, and I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible. So you got this top resistance line I've drawn here between this point, and I've extended it further. You got a bottom support line that I've drawn from this point all the way to here, which goes through this intersection here, or this point. So you can see we're in a narrowing descending wedge right now. And you can see that this is 0 down here. Right now you're at 27,901.60 cents on Bitcoin. As you can see, that's fluctuating. You can see that just recently we've gone up some, almost close to 30 or so thousand. It dropped back down, then it's come back up. So charts are going to move up and down. It's just the way the charts move. So you have to figure out what the charts are doing. The reason I've drawn these lines here is because what we tend to get into is what we call a head and shoulders pattern. Now, I want to explain. I'm not an expert in any way, shape, or form in this. I just look at charts. Okay, charts don't lie. You can usually tell the future by where the charts are heading. So I look at charts, and I look at charts in all kinds of different areas. But regardless of that, I wanted to show you this. So this is what we call the neckline. And then you have a shoulder here, a shoulder here, and a head. And when this pattern forms, we tend to have a massive drop. Okay, so you'll necessarily see this huge drop. Now you can have an inverse head and shoulders pattern where it does exactly this opposite. It will have a shoulder, a head, a shoulder, a neckline, and then it will move up. And so you'll see a positive trend there. But what we're seeing is a number of, now there is inverse head and shoulders on the Bitcoin patterns, and you'll usually see them go up. But I'm not concentrating on that right now. I'm looking at just head and shoulder normal patterns and how this is dropping the markets down, especially in this case Bitcoin. So what I'm seeing is I see three sets of patterns here that seem to show we're going to have an additional drop fairly soon. So we're on the day chart to start, so you can switch this to different chart, days, hours, minutes, things like that. I usually go out. You can expand this out further, but I thought this was a good example chart to use, and so I'm using the day chart. So you got a neckline here, you got a shoulder here, and a head. You got a neckline here, a shoulder here, and a head. You got a neckline here, a shoulder, a head, and if it bounces off this resistance line and comes back down, I'm expecting it to almost go below this trend line of this shoulder and then come back up, hit this about at the resistance line, and then tank. Okay? If that happens, we're going to see this come down into, and I've said this for a while, you could see Bitcoin go below not only 10,000, but below 5,000. And I know that sounds crazy, and everybody thought it was crazy when I said when we were at like 74 Doge or whatever at the time, we would go to 8-cent Doge, and everybody thought, oh, that's just insane. Well, we are at 8-cent Doge, and it's going to drop lower. I wanted to show you something extremely important on these charts. So you're going to see these patterns, and I talk about patterns constantly because it's all about patterns and these trajectories, these apexes, and how this gets squeezed down into a potential zone where it runs into a bottom and it just collapses. And I believe we're getting ready for that. Now, I believe that we're in the third leg down, potentially, or getting ready to hit the third leg down. And this is interesting timing, especially with the banking collapse, the bond collapse, and all these different problems with liquidity and bank runs and different things going on with the banks at this very moment. So I just wanted to show you this, and I don't know if it will matter. Just realize that it could happen. And this is where I want you to realize that this could be a real problem. So in this first leg down, we had it come up, it started to form a shoulder, started to form the head, formed another shoulder. Somewhere down in here is the neckline because you've got the head here with the two shoulders. So this is sort of the neckline here. And if you take this pre-made line that I've done and realize that if you draw this from this shoulder neckline down to this point here, this is the drop. Okay, so you went from approximately 52,556.10 down to about 28,905. Okay, now watch this. When you take this line and you move it down to here, you realize that we on this head and shoulders pattern with this neckline, see the head here, shoulder and a shoulder, that when you run this through as a neckline and you bring this same line over, we dropped approximately the same amount. So you went from 42, it came back up, went to 42,000, about 41,961.20, all the way down to about 18,705.50. We might be seeing a third pattern forming right now. And as you can see, this is starting to squeeze down into this apex. Okay? And when it does this, it tends to bounce down into this, and it's either going to break out or it's going to break down. Okay? What I'm seeing, though, is you've got a start of a shoulder pattern here, or you've had the left shoulder. You have the head, and if it bounces off this resistance line, which I believe it will, and we'll bring this up just so you can see a little better. So if it bounces off this, which I believe it will come back down similar to these same patterns. So you'll notice that it comes up, it bounces down, it comes up, hits the head, comes back down, hits the shoulder, and then it crashes. Okay? Now, the question is, in this case, we saw it drop below this line, and so we don't know where the shoulder is actually at. But you'll notice that it usually tends to be just a little bit below the left shoulder. Okay, so the right shoulder is a little less, and so I've marked that as a little less from this shoulder to this shoulder. But if you take this line and you bring it over to the shoulder here, even if you go to this shoulder, I hate to do that. You're getting into a real mess here, because if this really bottoms out, you could see this whole market crash. But let's say we take it to this trend line shoulder here, or even into here somewhere, just to be fair, because what would happen would this would become down, it would hit approximately around this neckline, it would come back up, and then it would crash, just as it has over here. If that's the case, then you could see potentially, as it indicates here, Bitcoin could drop below $1,000. I know that sounds terribly crazy. And even if it fell within this bottom support line, you could see it drop to almost 7,500. Now, could it drop to 7,500 and then do another one of these and keep going down? Because the trend line's down. Unless it breaks out of this trend line and goes up and sustains that, it's on a trend line down, and this is a day chart, okay? So this has been moving down for a while, just as Doge did a year and a half ago. It took a year and a half for it to get to 8 cents. I told you I didn't know exactly when it was going to get there. It was just heading that way. I believe the markets are really struggling at this point, and I don't believe the Fed's going to be able to save us. If he raises 0.25 or even 0.5, which may be impossible at this point, but if he raises rates at all to fight inflation and not deal with the markets and the bonds, then he's going to send this into a condition of peril here, and we're going to see this really fall down. But even if you take this trend line and move it, to any of these, and this is what I keep saying, look at how this works. Every time we hit a shoulder pattern and you hit that edge of the shoulder, you'll notice that these lines right here, I'm sorry, I missed one there. So this one's here, this one's here. Look, it dropped down to about there, and then it leveled up, and then it came back up. And then you've got one coming up now that I believe is going to come up fairly soon, and that's around $967.30. That is what they call a fire sale. Could it drop down lower? Could. If you can get Bitcoin in this environment at $1,000 or under $5,000, and even if you take it to the trend line, you're talking about 6,000, 5,000, somewhere in here. That's a pretty good deal on Bitcoin, because I don't believe Bitcoin is going anywhere. Ethereum probably will stay around, maybe a few of the altcoins, but most of the altcoins will fall out, and you'll see them go away, and they'll just be like banks. They'll just dissolve. But Bitcoin has been around, it's been established, and there's too much liquidity in it. Even if they sell it off, I believe that it will survive. And so I try to diversify portfolios so that you have metals, some fiat cash, some of you are in the markets in different ways, shapes, and forms, long-term or swinging, or however you're dealing with that. And some people are diversified in crypto. And in this environment, you don't know what's going to survive out here. So you need to be diversified in many, many different things. God bless everybody and have a great night.